Hi, hello, namaskar, dosto. Welcome to this lesson one, and here I will discuss about some points. That is, what is life, what is biodiversity, what is the nomenclature, and what is the three domains of the life. I hope you already have seen the overview lesson, so you get a overview of this whole course. Okay, so in this lesson I am going to discuss about these points. That is, what is life, the biodiversity, the nomenclature, need for classification, and three domains of the life. So I think this lesson, this video is going to be little bit long because there is so many points to be discussed. So please, I am requesting you to please keep patience and watch this video till the end. Now please follow the instruction. Stop for a while, sit back and sit up in a straight posture. Take a deep breath and let's get started. At first, we will discuss about the characteristics of the living organism. Everybody of us know that the living organisms, they can grow, they can reproduce, they have ability to sense the environment and mount a suitable response come out of their mind. Okay. Another some characteristic features of the living organisms are metabolism, ability to self-replicate, self-organize, interact and emergence. Okay. Now I will discuss point by point. I will discuss all these points of the all these characteristic features of the living organisms. Okay. One by one I will discuss. Now let me come to the growth. All living organisms can grow. The two main salient features of the growth is increase in mass and the increase in number. We must remember this point because NCERT says that increase in mass and increase in number of individuals are twin characteristics of the growth. Okay. A multicellular organisms can grow by the cell division. Okay. In case of plants, this growth is by cell division occurs continuously throughout their life, but in case of animals, the growth is seen only up to a certain age. We should remember this differentiating point between plants and animals. That is in case of plants, the growth is limitless, but in case of animals, there is limited growth. Cell division occurs in certain tissue to replace the lost tissue. Okay. Now here is a question for you. Do you think that growth is a all defining characteristics of the living organism? The answer is no. The growth the growth cannot be a all defining characteristics of the living organisms, as because growth exhibited by non-living objects is by accumulation of the materials on their surface. Okay, we can take an example of hills and the icelands. The hills and icelands also can increase in their size, also can increase in their mass by depositing the sand particles on their surface. But in case of the living organisms, growth is from inside. This is the differentiating point. In case of non-living objects, growth is from the outside, but in case of living organisms, growth is from the inside. Now let me come to another point, that is reproduction. In multicellular organism, they can reproduce by sexual or asexual means. So what is sexual reproduction and what is asexual reproduction, we will discuss in different chapter. There is a separate chapter for sexual and asexual reproduction. For now, you should remember the reproduction can be two types, a sexual reproduction and the asexual reproduction. Okay. Now here you should remember some important points. Okay, because the question have been asked from these points that fungi reproduce by sexual spore, yeast and hydra reproduce by the budding, planaria, that is a flat one, they can reproduce by true regeneration. Now a question will come into your mind that what is regeneration? Regeneration means fragmented organisms regenerate their lost part of its body, lost part of their body, and they becomes a new organism. Okay, now come to the unicellular organism. It is so much interesting about the unicellular organism, and here is a very good concept we must should remember is that in case of unicellular organism like bacteria, unicellular algae or amoeba, reproduction is synonymous with the growth. There is not any differentiating barrier between the between these two terms, that is reproduction and growth in case of unicellular organisms, because that is increase in the number of cell. We have already defined growth as equivalent to the increase in cell or mass. Hence we notice that in single celled organism we are not very clear about the usage of this term growth and reproduction. Now let me explain. Okay, in case of unicellular organisms, they can grow by their population growth. When there is their population grow, when their population will grow in their mass, we can say there is growth happening. So how their growth is happening? Their growth is happening by reproduction, because there is no any individual growth. There is individual reproduction, and by reproduction they increase their number, and by increasing their number they grow their mass of the population. So you should remember this term, that the growth and reproduction are synonymous in case of the unicellular organisms. Okay, now here is a question for you. Please think about this. Can you say that the reproduction is an all-inclusive defining characteristics of the living organism? The answer is no. We cannot say the reproduction is an all-inclusive defining characteristics of the living organisms, because the mules, the sterile worker bees, the infertile human couples, they are also living organisms, but they are unable to reproduce. Okay, so these are some concept you must should remember. Okay, now let me come to the another salient feature of the living organism, that is metabolism. Very important, that is metabolism. Okay, metabolism can be seen in all living organisms. Okay, all living organisms are made up of different chemicals. The chemicals can be small and big, and they can be belonging to the various classes, size and functions. Now what do you mean by these chemicals? These chemicals are denotes the biomolecules. The biomolecules can be various classes. That means it can be protein, it can be carbohydrate, it can be nucleic acid, it can be fat molecules, and all these things. Okay, so actually metabolism happening all these biomolecules inside our cell. There is a dynamic interaction between all these biomolecules inside our cell, and all these reactions are collectively known as metabolism. Okay, these are collectively known as the metabolic reactions. These reactions are occurring inside all unicellular and multicellular organism. Okay, we can say that metabolism is present in all unicellular and multicellular organism. Okay, now you must should remember that metabolism is a defining feature of all living organisms without any exception. It can be unicellular organism, it can be multicellular organism, it can be eukaryotes, it can be prokaryotes. That everywhere there is metabolism is common characteristics of all living organisms. Okay, now another small point you must should remember, that isolated metabolic reactions in vitro, that means inside the test tube, are not living things, but surely these are living reactions. These lines are very tricky lines. Actually these lines are hide from the NCERT, and the question have been asked. So you must should remember these lines as such. Isolated metabolic reactions in vitro are not living things, but surely living reactions. Okay, true or true false like questions can become in the NEET examination. I will discuss about the confirmation of the question in another separate video. Okay, for this time you just continue. Now let me come to the another salient feature of the living organism, that is the ability to sense the environment. Okay, they have the ability to sense the environment. They can respond to any kind of physical, chemical, and biological stimuli. Sense organs play a role to react against any biological stimuli. Okay, so there are various sense organs in prokaryotes and eukaryotic cells. We will discuss one by one in another chapters. Okay, we will discuss in details about all their sense organs and all these things when we will discuss about their phylum, their species, and all these classifications. Okay, plants respond to external factors. Like here is some examples you should keep in mind, that plants respond to external factors like light, water, temperature, pollutants, etc. Okay, photoperiodic effect are seen in case of seasonal breeder, both plant and animals. Okay, it may be prokaryotes or eukaryotes, they have a awareness. These things, the ability of sense of the environmental stimuli, we can say this property as the awareness. But in case of human, we have self consciousness, because we can think, we can imagine, and we have a future plan. So we are the advanced organism in whole over the world, so we can say we have self consciousness. Now a question for you, that what do you think, the patient in the coma are living or non-living? Yes, there is a there is a confusion here, because the patients in coma, they have no self consciousness, they are unconscious, but still we will say that they are living, because their heart is working, there is whole blood circulation in their whole over the body, their brain is working, they are not brain dead. Okay, in case of human, when they are brain dead, we consider them as dead. Okay, and that's all about the ability to sense the environment. Now some very important points to be remembered. These points are so much important, because at various year, various time, the questions have been asked from these lines as such. These lines are so much important. Okay, so let's understand. Okay, properties of tissues are not present in the constituent cell, but arise as a result of interaction among the constituent cells. We should understand the concept of interaction. We have discussed about the metabolism. Due to the metabolism, different biomolecules comes into takes place, and the interaction between the different biomolecules, for that interaction, we are living. Okay, properties of the tissues are not present in the constituent cell, but arise as a result of the interaction among the constituent cells. Likely, properties of the cellular organelles are not present in their molecular constituent or organelles, but arise as a result of interaction among the molecular component comprising the organelles. Okay, here I am taking an example. If we take the example of the protein synthesis, at first there is replication inside the nucleus, that is formation of DNA from a DNA, that is replication, and after that formation of RNA from a DNA, that is transcription, that occurs inside the nucleus. After that RNA comes out from the nucleus and it go to the ribosome, and in the ribosome the translation process has been takes place. Translation means the formation of protein from the RNA. Okay, and this translation process has been takes place inside the ribosome. So you can see here that this process is so much essential for the living organisms, and this process is nothing but interaction between different biomolecules, that is DNA, RNA, and protein, and there is interactions between different cell organelles, that is nucleus, ribosome, etc. I hope you must understand this concept. Okay, this phenomenon is true in the hierarchy of organizational complexity at all levels. Therefore, we can say that living organisms are self-replicating. So after all this discussion, okay, we can come to a conclusion that what could be a definition of the living organisms. We can say that the living organisms are self-replicating, they are self-evolving, they are self-regulating, interactive system capable of responding to the external stimuli. Okay, and that's all about what is living. I have completed a topic, that is what is living. Now let's come to the next part, that is the biodiversity. Okay, what do you understand by the biodiversity? In our surrounding there are so many plants, there are so many animals, all these things are biodiversity. Is collectively we know, we term them as the biodiversity. Okay, some points to be remembered: if we increase the area that we make observation in, the range and variety of the organism that we see would increase. In dense forest we would probably see a much greater number of the living organism. Here we should keep in mind some numerical values, that range of the species, number of species in whole over the world. It can be ranged from 1.7 to 1.8 million. Okay, now let me come to the nomenclature. Nomenclature is very important part, so please keep patience. Okay, so let me discuss about the nomenclature. In whole over the world, different species have their different local names, but these local names of plants and animals are vary from place to place, and they also can vary inside different places of the same country also. Okay, so to standardize the naming of living organisms such that a particular organism is known by the same name all over the world, this process is called the nomenclature. Okay, here 2 point we must have to remember is that for plant, the scientific name, the rules and regulations are provided in the International Code of Botanical Nomenclature. The abbreviated form is ICBN. We should remember the full form of ICBN, that is International Code of Botanical Nomenclature. In case of animal we use the ICZN, that means the International Code of Zoological Nomenclature. Okay, you should remember this point. Now let me come to the binomial nomenclature system. Who have proposed the binomial nomenclature system? Carolus Linnaeus, the scientist who have proposed the scientific name of the plants in his book Species Plantarum, and he proposed the scientific name of the animals in his book the Systema Naturae. So here we should keep in mind the name of these two books, that is the Species Plantarum and the Systema Naturae. In Species Plantarum it is related to the plant, the scientific naming of the plant, and the scientific naming of the animals is described in the Systema Naturae. Now let me come to the rules and regulations of the binomial nomenclature. This is the most important thing in this whole lesson. Okay, so please listen carefully. Okay, rules of the binomial nomenclature. Each scientific name has two components. One we call the generic name, and another one is the specific epithet. Example, Solanum tuberosum. The Solanum tuberosum, that is the scientific name of potato. Here we find that this Solanum is the generic name and the tuberosum is the specific epithet. Likewise, the scientific name of mango, the Mangifera indica, here the Mangifera is the generic name and the indica is the specific epithet. Okay, in case of plant nomenclature, tautonyms are not valid. Now another point you must remember, that in case of plant, tautonyms are not valid. So here a question will come into your mind, that what is tautonym? Tautonym stands for when their generic name and specific epithet are similar, we called them the tautonym. Okay, when in any scientific name the generic name and the specific epithet is same, we called them the tautonym. But in case of plant nomenclature, generic name and specific epithet should not be the same. Like example, Mangifera mangifera, this is wrong. But in case of animals, tautonym is valid. Okay, like if you like example, if you see that Naja Naja, it is the scientific name of Indian cobra. The Rattus Rattus, the scientific name of rat. Okay, so by tautonyms are valid in case of animal nomenclature, that is ICZN. Okay, now come to the another point. First letter of the generic name should be in capital letter, and the first letter of the specific epithet should be in the small letter. Okay, you can see that in the Solanum tuberosum, the first name, that is Solanum S, it is in capital letter, but in the tuberosum, that is the specific epithet, it is small letter T. Okay, now come to the another point, that is handwritten scientific names should be separately underlined, and during printing the name should be in italics indicating their Latin origin. So here you must should remember these points, that when we will use the handwritten scientific name, we must have to underline the generic name and the specific epithet separately, and when we will print the scientific name, we will make it in italics, because the scientific names are actually Greek or Latin origin. You must should remember this point also. Scientific names are of Greek or Latin origin. Okay. The last rules of the binomial nomenclature, that is the name of the scientist should be written in abbreviated form, that is in short form after the specific epithet. So here you can see that the Mangifera indica Linn. So this Mangifera indica, this scientific name have been proposed by the Linnaeus. So here we have used the short form of the scientist name, that is Linnaeus Linn, Linn, after the specific epithet, that is indica. So that is all about the rules of the binomial nomenclature system. Now let me come to the needs for the classification. Okay, here I will discuss about the needs for the classification. Classification is the process by which anything is grouped into convenient categories based on some easily observable characteristics. What is our purpose of classification? Our main purpose of classification is to organize the vast number of known organisms into categories so that they could be named, remembered and studied separately for easy understanding. Okay, so here now I will discuss about three process of the classification, that is the practical classification system. Here I will discuss about the practical classification system, the artificial classification system, and at last I will discuss about the natural classification system. Okay, now let me start with the practical classification system. Practical classification is on the basis of economic importance or human use. So in practical classification, we make the classification on the basis of economic importance or human use. Example like well yielding plants like coconut, walnut and soybean, fiber yielding plants like jute and cotton, medicinal plants like Ruolfia and eucalyptus. Okay, it is just for your make your conception clear. You don't have to remember these points or these names for now. Okay, let's come to the artificial classification system. Artificial classification is based on one or two morphological characteristics. Only one or two morphological characteristics. Okay, now let me come to the natural classification. It is very important, that is the natural classification system. The natural classification system is based on complete morphological characteristics, and it is the most advanced classification system. You should remember this point. Complete morphological characteristics, that is the stem, the root, leaves, flowers, etc. Okay, natural classification is also again classified into two parts, that is the natural non-phylogenetic classification and another natural phylogenetic classification. So here a question will come in your mind, that is what is phylogeny? Phylogeny is the study of the evolutionary developmental process of the different species. Phylogeny is the study of evolutionary developmental process of the different species. I will discuss in details about the phylogenetic classification in the next lesson. Okay. For now, you should remember that phylogeny is the evolutionary study, evolutionary process or evolutionary developmental study, we can say. So, what is natural non-phylogenetic classification? In case of natural non-phylogenetic classification, phylogeny of the plant is not considered. Only the morphology is considered. Okay? But in case of natural phylogenetic classification, here we consider both morphology and the phylogeny. Okay? And that's all about the classification. Now, let me come to the last point, the last topic of this first lesson, that is the three domains of the life. Okay, so who have proposed the three domains of the life? We must remember the name. Scientist Carl Woese. Okay, scientist Carl Woese have proposed the three domains of the life. C-A-R-L, Carl, W-O-E-S-E. Okay, Carl Woese, who have proposed the three domains of the life. At first, you listen carefully. In this three domain system, organisms have been divided into three domains, three main domains, that is archaea, bacteria and eukarya. Archaea is included in the kingdom Archaebacteria. In the bacteria, we find a kingdom that is Monada, and in the eukarya, we find a kingdom that is Protista, Mycota, Plantae and Animalia. So here we find 6 kingdoms. So we also can say that this is the 6th kingdom. Okay, I know that you will find a little bit difficult to understand this thing because I have not discussed about this kingdom and all the characteristics of these different kingdoms, because I will discuss in details about, I will discuss in the 5 kingdom classification in the next lesson, that is the lesson 2. I will discuss in details about all these things. In that time I will mention and this three domain of the life system. Okay, so for this, thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope this will beneficial for your easy understanding of the lesson. So please continue with the lesson 2. Please come to the lesson 2. Thank you so much.